Good morning, second graders. Happy Monday, and welcome to another week of distant learning. Today we're going to be answering true and false questions from the text and reviewing some letter sounds. We have a fun activity to do that. By the time you're done with this video, you should be able to submit page 6 through 7 to me today. So don't forget, when you're done with the video in your work today, send me page 6 through 7 so that you can get credit. Let's get started. We're going to start today reading Francis Scott Key and the National Anthem. You're going to find that this story starts on page 2 of your packet. The pages that you're going to cite later when you need to cite text evidence are the tiny pages on the bottom when you're holding your paper sideways that say 70 through 77. So when you write page numbers on your worksheet today, I should see pages 70 through 77 on there. All right, with me on page 2, we see 3 different vocabulary words on this page. The first vocabulary word is opened fire. Opened fire means that you shot a weapon in order to start a fight or a battle. So it's how they started battles in the War of 1812. One of the sides, either the United States or Great Britain, would open fire on the other side. Our next word is rockets. Rockets are a type of missile that's used in battle. The next word is mortars. The next word is mortars are types of cannons that are used in battle. While we read this page, I want you to listen to see why didn't the soldiers in Fort McHenry fire back at the British? Go ahead and point to the first word on this page on and follow along while I read out loud. On September 13th, 1814, British ships opened fire on Fort McHenry. They fired rockets and mortars. The soldiers in the fort would have fired back, but there was not much point. The guns in the fort were old. They could not hit the British ships. The British ships kept firing for a long time. They fired all day. They fired on into the night. Look back on this page and tell me, why didn't the soldiers in Fort McHenry fire back at the British? Tell me out loud. Good. They didn't fire back because the guns that they had were old, and so they wouldn't hit the British ships. Basically, if they tried to shoot their guns, they wouldn't go far enough. They'd just land in the water. So there was really no point for them to even bother firing back. Take a moment to read the caption, the words, under the picture on page 71. And then turn the page. No vocabulary words on this page, but we do have a question to think about while we're reading. Think about what Francis Scott Key thought it meant if he could still see the flag flying. So what does it mean if the flag is still flying? An American named Francis Scott Key watched the British attack. He was on a boat in the harbor. Key was not a soldier. He did not fight in the battle, but he was able to see it. He could see the British ships blasting away. He could see Fort McHenry. He could also see the huge flag Mrs. Pickersgill had made. Key kept his eye on the American flag. As long as the flag was still flying at the fort, America was still in the battle. It meant that the troops in Fort McHenry had not given up. If the flag went down, that would mean America was no longer fighting. That would mean that the troops in the fort had given up. Key watched all day. He was still watching when the sun set. He was proud that the flag was still flying. So he was watching to see whether the flag would still keep flying, which meant they didn't give up, or if the flag went down, which would mean that we did give up and we weren't fighting anymore. But they said after sunset, it was still flying. Let's go back to our question we were listening for on this page. What did Francis Scott Key think it meant if he could still see the flag? What did it mean if the flag was still flying? Tell me out loud. Great. If the flag was still flying, it meant that the troops had not given up. It meant that the Americans were still fighting. Could Francis Scott Key see the flag when the sun set? Yes, he could. Down here it tells us after the sunset he was proud to see that the flag was still flying. This picture on page 73 is what Francis Scott Key looked like. Go ahead and turn to the next page. We have one vocabulary word on this page, and that word is streaking. Streaking means moving quickly. While I read this page, listen to see what happened after the sunset. So we already know what happened at sunset. He could still see the flag. Let's see what happens after sunset. At night, it was harder for Key to see, but there were flashes of light. Sometimes a rocket would go streaking through the darkness. Sometimes a bomb would explode and light up the sky. The flashes of light allowed Key to see the flag. The firing went on until just before dawn. Dawn is when the sun begins to rise, the morning. Then it stopped. The sun had not come up yet. It was still dark. There were no rockets blasting. There were no bombs bursting in the air. Key could not see much. The silence was puzzling. What did it mean? Was the battle over? Had the soldiers in the fort given up? Key could not tell. He couldn't tell because it was still dark. The sun hadn't risen yet. It wasn't quite dawn yet. Let's keep reading. Key waited nervously. At last, the sun rose. Key looked at the fort. And what did he see? The soldiers had raised the huge flag that Mrs. Pickersgill had made. It was not the U.S. soldiers who had given up. It was the British sailors. They had stopped firing on the fort. Key felt a surge of joy. He felt pride, too. The brave men in the fort had not given up. Let's go back to our question. What happened after the sunset? Remember, after the sunset means when it was dark, when it was nighttime. What happened at nighttime? Good. It was harder for Key to see, but the flashes of light that he was seeing from the battle allowed him to see the flag. So it was hard to see, but he could see it a little bit every once in a while. What happened when the sun came up once it was finally daytime? Tell me out loud. Good. He saw that the flag was still flying. They had raised it, so he could see that we had actually won the battle. Take a look at that picture and the caption, the words on page 75. And then turn to the next page. We have a lot of vocabulary words on this page because we want to look at the words that are actually in our national anthem. The first word that we're going to see on this page is inspired. Inspired means wanting to do something. Like, I was inspired to take Otis for a walk when I saw the nice weather outside. The next vocabulary word is hailed. Hailed in this case means saw, that you saw something. The next word is perilous. Perilous is another word for dangerous. The next word is ramparts. Ramparts are the walls of a fort. And the last vocabulary word is gallantly. Gallantly means impressively. As I read this page, listen to see how Key felt when he saw that the flag was still flying and what he wanted to do about it. Key felt inspired. He hoped to share with others what he had seen. He needed to tell what it was like to wait and then see the flag still flying in the morning. Key reached into his pocket. He found an old letter. On the back, he wrote a poem. Here is the first part of his poem. Oh, say can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? He did not know then that one day his poem would become our national anthem. So going back to the question that we were listening for on this page, first, how did Francis Scott Key feel when he saw that the flag was still flying? Good. He felt inspired. And so, what did he want to do about it? What was he inspired to do? Great. He was inspired to share with others what he had seen. He wanted to tell everyone all about it because he was so amazed and inspired. In order to tell everyone what he saw, he wrote a poem. Go ahead and turn to the next page in your packet. This page and the next page that I'll show you are the pages that you need to complete and send to me today for credit. These are due next Monday, but it's probably best to send them as you complete them. That way, if you lose the pages, no worries, you already sent it to me, okay? So as soon as you're finished with this, take a quick picture and send it to me so you can get that credit. On this page, it's asking us to write true or false on the first line. Then we need to write the page number where we found the answer. So let's look at the first question for an example. Number 1 says, British ships opened fire on Fort McHenry on June 13th, 1913. So this is talking about opening fire. I remember that that's something that happens when a battle is starting. So this question must be answered somewhere at the beginning of my story. So I'm going to go back to page 70. On page 70, at the very beginning, it says, on September 13th, 1814, British ships opened fire on Fort McHenry. That's not the date that they gave me on my worksheet. This says September 13th. My worksheet had a different date. So the statement on my worksheet is false. So I'm going to write false on the line. They said June 13th. That's not true. It happened in September. So this is false. And I found that information from a sentence on page 70. Okay. You're going to complete the rest of these 2 through 6 in just the same way. Then when you're finished, for fun, you can make a drawing of the attack on Fort McHenry. I can't wait to see your drawings of what this battle looked like when you send me your work. Go ahead and press pause on the video, complete page 6 and 7, send them to me, and then press play to continue with the rest of your pages for today. Welcome back. Thanks for sending me your work. It looked awesome. This activity is a super fun way to review letter sounds. This was one of my favorite activities to do when I was in elementary school. I'm going to show you how it works. We have to read all these clues, and then we have to fill in the blanks with the letters from the box. The way that these are written allow you to write one letter on each line. So it kind of gives you a little bit of a clue because you can count how many letters each word is going to be. That kind of gives you a little bit of a hint. So your next activity is to complete page 8, page 9, and page 10. Let's look at page 8 to see an example of how this is going to work. So I'm back on page 8. I'm going to read the very first one to you. It says, I dug up a very old that had a leaf imprint on it. It looks like I'm looking for a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 letter word. Which one of these things in the box is a 6-letter word that you could find a leaf imprint on? I found it. It must be fossil. I dug up a very old fossil that had a leaf print on it. Notice that I wrote one letter on each line, F-O-S-S-I-L. Each letter gets its own line. Then I see underneath the letter O, there's a number 1. What does that mean? Let me show you. I'm going to flip to page 10. Meet me there. And on page 10, I see a secret message down at the bottom, and there is a secret code for us to solve this message. We said the number 1 was under the letter O, so I'm going to find the letter 1 on my page, and I'm going to write the letter O on that line. Let's take a look at number 2 on page 8 to see how this keeps going. Meet me back on page 8. Number 2 says, can you sing the song? Whoa, this is the longest word on the page. This one is 8 letters. I only see one 8-letter word in the box, and that word is alphabet. So I'm going to write alphabet going across the lines for number 2. Can you sing the alphabet song? That makes sense, and it fits on the lines. Then I see that there is a number 3 underneath the letter A. So then I'm going to have to go back to page 10. I find the number 3 and I write the letter A on top of the number 3. When you finish this whole worksheet, number 1 through 18, you'll have a secret message down here on the bottom that you should be able to read, and it will make sense. I can't wait to see if you're able to figure out this puzzle, this secret code, and what it says. Awesome work today. Again, don't forget, make sure you sent me page 6 and 7. I'll see you again tomorrow for our next lesson. Bye-bye.